Arm triangles galore, guys. So often when we get to side control, our partner starts to frame off of our face. Okay? If I can start to pass that frame across and trap it with my head, I'm gonna lock my hands. I gotta keep his arm stuck to his head. I'm gonna come up into knee on belly. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ferry my feet across his body. Okay? I'm gonna bring one foot on top of the other foot so that I can transfer my feet across his body without getting caught into his guard. Okay? So I'm gonna show that from another angle in a second, but I pressure forward. I'm using my head to keep his arm glued to his head. I pick myself up just high enough to slide my knee across his belly. Okay? One foot stacks on top of the other. Then I'm going to transition over to the opposite knee on belly. Now I can extend to slide down really flat. I'll get my arm deeper on his neck by picking it up. Now I can get it lower by the base of his neck rather than up high on his skull. So I'll reach across, I'll grab the far ear and pick it up to get down by the base of the neck. I need this hand flat on the floor and that elbow flat on the floor as well. But now my next target is to get my collarbone way down here into his armpit. If I push right here, his shoulder is not gonna hit his own neck. So I gotta back myself up so I can get my collarbone in his armpit. But now you see my elbow came off the mat over there. So I'm gonna drive back forward to put my elbow to the mat. I'm gonna back up another time, get my collarbone deep into his armpit, and put my elbow flat to the mat. Now I'm gonna drive straight forward next to him. I'm driving forward next to him, and I'm gonna turn around the corner like I'm in a car. Okay? You can't turn on a dime, you're gonna drive around that corner. So my collarbone's in his armpit. I'm nice and low on his neck. My elbow's in the mat, the collarbone's in the armpit, the elbow's on the mat. I'm gonna drive forwards, and I'm gonna start turning around the corner before I now flex and take a deep breath. That deep breath is gonna be your finishing touch. Okay? A little bit. Actually, switch it the other way so I can show the footwork. I pop that arm across, and I pin it. I lock my hands, I come up to knee on belly. I'm gonna use my foot to carry the other foot across so I can get the opposite knee on belly. Okay? If you pick your hips back up and try and slide off, there's a chance that people start trying to catch you back in their guard. So I just like to extend, and that kicks his legs away from me. I want to be flat to the mat. I don't want to be up high. If I'm up high, my angle is wrong. I'm now pushing his arm over his head instead of pushing his shoulder up into his neck. It'd be the same problem if my collarbone was way up here in his tricep and now I'm squeezing. It's not gonna work. I gotta get down low and I gotta be as flat as I can be. If I could be behind him, I would be. We'll talk about that in a minute. So I'm gonna readjust this grip. I'm gonna grab his ear so I can get nice and deep on that neck. My bicep goes all the way to his neck. Palm flat to the floor, elbow flat to the floor. I gotta get this collarbone in his armpit. Elbow back to the mat. I drive forward, I turn around the clock, I flex and I take a deep breath. And that's where we get our first tap. The reason that I don't want to stay high above him is because of the angle that I'm trying to push his shoulder into his neck. If I push his shoulder like this, I'll do all the motion for you. Okay? If I push it straight up, his shoulder doesn't actually reach his neck. If I push his shoulder forwards while I do this, his shoulder comes up and it touches his neck. Okay? If I push it backwards at all, so as in if my angle was not linear to him, but it was angled to him, I won't push his shoulder up into his neck. Okay? So when I get my collarbone in his armpit, I want to be as far behind him as I can. Now that shoulder is driving up into his neck. If I'm in front of him and I drive, this arm's gonna come right past his neck, and you'll see I can fit my finger in here. So I wanna be almost behind him. It's almost like I would wanna put my ear on his shoulder blade. It doesn't actually work out that way, but as we lay down, you see I wanna get flatter and flatter and flatter. In reality, if I can get him to turn just a little bit, and I can beat him to the floor, that's way tighter than if I come down on top of him. Okay? So whenever I'm trying to do an arm triangle, I want to be beneath you. Okay? I don't actually want to be on top of you. I definitely want to drive down onto you. I want to drive forwards. And I'd like to do it so at an upward angle rather than a downward angle. Okay? I can add to that a little bit by, as I drive forward, I look up and across. And what that does is that uses my collarbone to push his armpit even more. So I can drive forward and then I can use my head to seal off that submission. And you'll see I'm not gonna flex, I'm not gonna change anything. I'm gonna drive forward. He's okay, you comfortable? All right, and then if I look up, you'll see that's gonna apply enough pressure that he's gonna start worrying what's happening. And that's with a lot of the missing pieces, okay? One of my other favorite places to hit this from, this way a little bit, and then lay it on that side. Perfect, okay? Is since I've gotten to a seatbelt side control, and my opponent's trying to turn his back flat to the mat, I'll dive around this and I'll let him make that turn. You see my elbow's off the mat, I can't have that, so I'm gonna pick his head up, I'm gonna get tighter, my elbow goes to the mat, my collarbone goes to his armpit, my elbow goes to the mat, collarbone to the armpit, elbow to the mat, I drive forward. Guys, the reason I'm not using two hands when I finish this is because that tells you to squeeze. People think I gotta get really, really strong and that's how I'm gonna submit him. And that's not exactly what I want. I want proper angles so that I can submit him with only a breath. Okay? I don't wanna have to wrench any of this. When you get to the point where you are locking your hands, you're doing this in a live scenario, the strongest grip is to grab your own bicep and grab your own head. Okay? Gable grips are good, S grips are good. I've seen people do all sorts of cool grips. Okay? The strongest one is by rear naked choke, like a figure four, and then I grab my head. If I grab his head, I'm actually pushing him away from this pressure. I want to pull him in tight to this pressure. Okay? How do we know that that's the best grip? I'm going to guard. If I have him in guard and I'm able to pull him past, okay? I bump him past and I get to an arm triangle. If I try and finish him with a gable grip, it's going to be really difficult. You might get him, okay? Especially if I get an angle. Now it's going to be a little easier. But when I switch to this grip, he taps before I have to do anything, okay? I might be able to force this, but push your elbow back into my head. It's going to be hard for me to close off that space. Once I get to here, it's hard for him to open that space back up. Okay, I'm relaxed here. They're all totally relaxed. He's not going to open that space back up. When my hands are open, there's a big circle. He can push his head away and he can push his elbow in and he can start to create this space right here. And I cannot have that. Okay, so I keep my head to his head. I stay tight here. I look up and over. Okay. So, one more time on your back. Right side. Right? So you find yourself in a seatbelt side control. Okay? In an ideal world, I'm going to be trying to take his back here. But if you feel him back pressuring, you feel like he's trying to turn back into you, I'm going to capitalize on that too. He goes to turn back into me, I'm going to turn with him. And we're going to fall right into our arm triangle. My head's going to stay by his head so that he doesn't have all this big open space to bring his arm around. My head stays on his head. Now it doesn't matter if he moves his arm around. He's not going to get it out. He can push it around. It's not going to come past. As long as my head's touching his head, there's no space for his arm to go. As soon as I make space, even when I'm pushing, he's going to eventually be able to fight his way out of that. So as soon as we get here, just touch that head to the head. Make your adjustments, collarbone to the armpit, elbow to the mat, palm flat, drive forward and around the clock, flex and take your deep breath. The first time this move showed up in the UFC was by Eric Ravishing Red Schaefer. In the 10 planet movement system, they call this move the Schaefer. Okay, so we're going to talk about the Schaefer from the back to the arm triangle, right? So, we find that our partner is starting to strip our hooks and he's stripping out to that direction. Oh no, he's beating my back control. I can't let him go. I'm gonna loop my arms right around his neck, and you find I'm in perfect position to set up my arm triangle. My head goes to his head. I'm gonna get a nice deep grip. Hey, when you're stabilizing this position, it can be pretty nice to grab this armpit, but I'm never gonna be able to choke him if my hand is up. I just don't have the proper kind of squeeze. I need this palm flat down. It flexes all those muscles. So when you're stabilizing, cool, grab the armpit, that's okay. I can push here, I can make these kind of connections. When I'm ready to choke him, that palm goes back flat to the mat. Collarbone to the armpit, elbow to the mat, collarbone to the armpit, elbow to the mat, drive forward, and you're gonna get your finish, okay? So, one more time from the back. It's important when you do this that your partner is falling towards your choking arm, okay? If he falls the other direction and now clears his bottom hook and goes over the top, when I loop around and he puts his back on the floor, I lose him completely. We're just in side control. Okay, so this move's only gonna work if they're falling towards the over side, towards the choking arm. So I've got his back, we fall towards the choking arm, he clears my hooks. Oh no! I loop around, and here's my Schaefer into my arm triangle. Okay? If you're looking to cue this setup on your own, okay, where's my face right now? I can fall this way, and you find that for whatever reason you can't quite get your regular back tense going. You can't get your rear naked choke. You're not able to find an arm bar. I can take this top hook out and hook behind his thigh. Now I can pick him up and I can slide my hook out. As I throw him away, it's going to make it easier for me to hit the twist that I need to get nice and low and hit my finish. Okay? One of the biggest things that you'll find people do is they try and answer the phone. Okay? Answering the phone is akin to putting a finger in a dam. The moment that this thing moves away, the floodgates are coming rushing in. Okay? So, a couple of things that I can do to address this. The first thing is I can make a fist right here, and I can try and fit it inside. If your fist is too big, you're gonna make a monkey paw. Matter of fact, just make a monkey paw. I'm gonna make a monkey paw, and I'm gonna put it right into the side of his neck, and now my bicep closes one side as my monkey paw hits the other side. Okay? Secondary option, I can slide that monkey paw all the way through to the top of my shoulder. Okay? So I come through, I'm gonna grab my wrist, I'm gonna slide my monkey paw into the side of his neck, or I can come all the way so that the side of my fist is on his neck. Okay? Rather than coming into the side of his neck, I'm more like rah, hammer fisting the side of his neck. Okay? So he answers the phone, I make a monkey paw. If I can get it on the side of the neck, great. If I can slide it under his chin, that's gonna be even better for me. And now it's just an Ezekiel from an arm triangle position. Okay? If those don't work out for you, I'm gonna pick my head up to his elbow. I'm gonna push my head into his elbow. I'm gonna grab his wrist, and I'm gonna pull his wrist. Okay? If you pull his wrist down into your head, you probably won't submit it. I wanna push, and I actually wanna pull his wrist up over my head. Okay? You might get the tap, which would be great, or if he really doesn't want to get caught, he's gonna straighten his arm out. And that puts me right back into the position to finish your arm triangle. Okay? So if you get to an arm triangle and he answers the phone, I can try and make a monkey paw and sneak that right in there to finish either like a punch choke or clean it up for an actual Ezekiel. Otherwise, I bring my head up to his elbow and I just pull. I used to do this with my head low, but when you pull, you're never gonna finish anybody, so they just kind of hang out there. When I bring my head up to the elbow and I push the other direction, that's what makes this feel like an actual Americana. When I'm down here and I pull, it doesn't feel like that much pressure. I pick my head up, I push it into the elbow, and now I start pulling this up and away. I don't want to pull it down, okay? He's gonna be able to handle this pressure for a while. I pull it up. Hopefully he just straightens his arm. Then I get to go right back to my choke. Okay? Common defense to the arm triangle. So right now my neck is touching my shoulder. You'll find people bring this inside leg up and they'll wrap their own arms around it. Now when I extend my leg, you see it pulls my shoulder away from my neck. Up here, oh God, I'm going to sleep. I start pushing down and he can go ahead and squeeze, and I'm not going to sleep. I might not be comfortable, but I'm not going to sleep. Okay? And then what they'll start doing is they'll start trying to turn away from you, because now I've taken the angle away from you. And arm triangles more often than not require me to be flat on my back. Okay? If I'm more than just a little bit off of flat on my back, in either direction, it opens that submission up completely. Okay? It just gets me out of here. So if I can grab my leg and use it to tip forwards, I've made a lot of space for myself. Okay? You'll find some better guys who start running away from you, and they'll actually use this to roll you. Okay? They'll look right across, and there's your dump. We do not want that to happen. Okay? Head facing that way. So just like, can you turn it for me? Just like he can reach back and grab my elbow, reach around my elbow with your elbow, use your elbow to hold it, and now he can fall to the side and he can fat roll me. Oh snap! If I take away that elbow, his chances of doing that are greatly diminished. Okay? He could grab my wrist and he might be able to do it, but if he really, go ahead and roll. If he rolls with just my wrist and I've got long arms, I might be able to hang out here. So I'm going to do the same thing from the arm triangle. Go ahead, guys. When I set my arm triangle up and he grabs that inside leg and he buys some space and he goes to tip to the side, I'm not going to let him have my elbow for free. I'm actually going to, instead of staying super deep and rolling with him, I'm going to shallow my grip up. Chris, can you come around to this side? Actually, we'll rotate a little bit. Instead of staying with that super deep grip where I had my elbow way behind his head, I'm going to shallow my grip up so that my thumb is right behind his head. Even more. Okay, all I want is my thumb deep. I go from flat, elbow on the mat, to as he rotates, go ahead and rotate. If I stay with him, oh no, I'm going to go all the way across. I'm going to shallow this elbow up so that my wrist is right at the blade of his neck. The blade of my wrist is right at the base of his neck. I'm going to punch this arm up to grab my bicep. I'm going to put a piece of rebar behind his neck. I want this straight up and down. I'm going to fall to my side, and I'm going to get real nice and close like we're spooning. Okay? All I have to do now is pull my top elbow backwards and drive my hips into him. And you get your submission. Okay? It's like I'm trying to pull him over me with this elbow. Okay? I'm pulling this elbow backwards. So, I got my submission. I grab my bicep. My elbow's flat to the mat. I don't want to start caving. This isn't going to work. I'm not going to keep my angle. I've already lost it. This elbow stays flat, or the elbow stays on the mat, and my arm is straight up and down in the air. I get really close to him. If I'm far away, I don't have the pressure behind his shoulder. I got to get nice and close. Take away all that space. I'm going to flex. I'm going to take a deep breath. And I'm going to pull my top elbow backwards. And that's your finish. Get good at your arm triangle. Please come back, like, subscribe, and please come back to learn more in Strangle School.